What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a found footage horror movie that was actually recommended to me by my tattoo artist, Noah. Noah, I appreciate you. Thanks for recommending this movie. He's actually recommended this movie to me a ton of times, and I always forget to check it out. Every time he mentions it, it's like I put it on my list and then I just forget with everything else that I watch. And I love found footage. I've talked about it on this channel multiple times. Found footage is one of my favorite genres because it's a way to create something incredibly compelling and effective without necessarily having the biggest budget. And this movie in particular didn't know anything about it before I went into it other than the brief description that Noah gave to me. And I'm really excited to tell you about the film Afflicted today. Afflicted is directed by Clif, Prowse, and Derek Lee. Two friends' tour of Europe takes a dark turn when one of them contracts a mysterious illness. They race to find out what it is and how to cure it before the sickness consumes him completely. So, I was excited to check this out. Noah has been recommending this movie to me for quite some time now, and I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it's a really unique take on the found footage genre, and it went in a direction that I wasn't necessarily expecting, which is what I appreciated about the movie. And I really liked the build up a lot. I really liked a lot of the practical effects that come into play later on in the movie. And I'm going to just give you a brief plot description and talk about the movie a little bit. I can't talk about my full thoughts without spoiling the movie. So later on in the review, I'm going to give you some spoiler thoughts. But for right now, keeping everything spoiler free and just giving you some brief thoughts on it. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to friends Derek and Cliff, and they've been friends for a very long time together. And we actually see Derek talking to the camera and telling us that he's planning this trip to Europe, and he's super excited about it. He can't wait to go on the trip. But very shortly after that, we see him having a video call with his brother, and we find out that Derek is battling this illness. And at any moment, this illness could flare up and eventually take his life. But he doesn't want that to get in the way of him living. And so these two friends, they travel to Europe together. They get there and they're having an incredible time. And they just are going from country to country and enjoying, like, exploring, going on all these trips, taking a lot of photos and video recording everything along the way. Well, one night, something happens to Derek that causes him to develop this illness. It's preventing him from doing more things on the trip normally. And the entirety of the film is us finding out what this disease is and what Derek is going to do about it and how Cliff is going to attempt to help him. So like I said, I thought this movie was really entertaining and a really fun look at the found footage genre. For starters, I really like the two actors in this movie. Whenever you're watching found footage, they're trying to make it feel like real life. And so many times you get people that are unexperienced actors or they don't have really great chemistry. And so it feels like a really low budget, bad movie. But every now and again, you get people that might not be big actors that have a really great chemistry together that feel like normal human beings. And that's what really works with Derek and Cliff in this movie. They just feel like guys who have been friends for a really long time. And so it's very easy to immerse yourself into the world and appreciate the relationship that these two guys have because they feel like brothers. They feel very close. And Cliff really feels like he would do anything for Derek and vice versa. And that's what I really liked about it. I also loved the incorporation of the brother. I feel like that gives you a little bit of of Derek's family dynamic so that when things kind of go off the rails in the third act, it's believable. And I think having all of these grounded performances is what is required to create an effective found footage viewing experience. Obviously, found footage, there's some shaky cam, there's some things that are rough around the edges naturally because it's just people that don't necessarily have great video recording experience video recording their vacation together. There are some moments where things are being filmed that you can ask the question, why is the camera still rolling? But this situation is such a unique and different thing that you understand it. You can get why so much of it's being recorded. And even in the moments where I kind of scratched my head a little bit, I was willing to suspend my disbelief because of how much they went for it. And I really like the practical effects in this movie. I can't really talk about the details of it without spoiling it, but the practical effects are really great. There's some really disgusting imagery in this movie that I think just accompanies what the film's going for so very well. And I really like the way that the the disease or the sickness that Derek gets when he travels overseas is so directly reflective of just people who get sick in general, and like how it overwhelmingly consumes you and how it affects relationships. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So that is the most I can give away without spoiling the movie. So if you haven't watched this, I would recommend going and checking it out. It's really well made. It's a very enjoyable found footage film. But from here on out, I'm going to talk about spoilers. It is the only way I can discuss the remainder of the movie. So the big spoiler of this movie is when Derek and Cliff are out hanging out in Europe together, going to this bar. Derek takes this woman home, and when he takes the woman home, they come into the room the next morning, and he's got a vampire bite on his body, and we find out that he's turning into a vampire. That's the sickness that he has contracted. And so throughout the movie, we see him learn about his vampiric powers and also the negative things, the way the sunlight burns his skin. He can't go out during the day, how he craves blood and needs blood, but he also gets superhuman strength and all of these different things. And we find out that when he's starved to a specific point, he turns into a just complete feral monster that has no control over himself. And I liked that spin on it. We don't always see that in vampire movies, where it's like, okay, you know, in vampire movies, we often get these people who they've changed, but they're oftentimes these really handsome looking people that allure women in. And I like that he just looks like himself at first, but the longer you go without blood, the more you turn into this just ravenous creature that looks disgusting and your skin starts falling apart. And I really like that. It's similar to what I talked about with Eggers' Nosferatu recently, like depicting vampires as these sickly, disgusting creatures that can't live without blood. It makes them more horrifying. And I feel like Hollywood has taken a very different approach to vampires over the years. And so it was cool to see that in this movie as well. It added a nice spin to it. And there's the tropes of vampire content here. They obviously get into the sunlight thing, but I really liked the way that it played into the movie. And I thought it was interesting, like when he needed to consume blood at first, he tried to drink it from various animals that he found. It didn't work. I really like, because a lot of these movies do that when people first try to eat when they've been turned, and he just like pukes everywhere. What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, did the best job with it, just making it very absurd and like the vampires kind of flying over the place. But I like that. It shows just how all consuming the sickness is. And the practical effects in this, there was some stuff that was very gnarly. And I love, through the found footage lens, you only have to show so much and you have a smaller budget. And I thought they did a great job of showing just enough that kind of depicts the gory, grisly nature of the situation in a way that you could feel, that was very palpable. And that's what I appreciated about this movie, because I think, like, you know, we've seen the vampire trope so many times, but to put it in context of it's just a guy and it's happening to this random guy, you could feel it through the emotion and through the way that he was reacting to the situation. And like I said earlier, I thought it was a very interesting parallel to his sickness, because vampirism can be allegorical for so many different things. As far as just like regular sickness, or like people have used it to be an allegory for alcohol abuse, all different things, and how it impacts you, but it also impacts the people around you because you have to push them away. Your behavior becomes very volatile. You have a need for a specific thing, otherwise, you can't stay alive. And I love those parallels to sickness, even like if you look at something like cancer or what he was going through in the early parts of the movie. This is something that is consuming him to the point where he's not going to be able to interact with people or live a normal day-to-day life, which is so true for a lot of people who deal with very consuming illnesses. And I've always thought vampirism is a really interesting allegory for all of those things. And horror is always very allegorical to real life experience. And that's what I liked a lot about Afflicted. It was just it was a lot of fun, for one. Like, it was really entertaining and enjoyable, but it also had a lot of really thoughtful moments as well. If I have any issues with this movie, there's some periods in time where I feel like there were certain scenes that could be cleaned up to kind of make the runtime feel a little breezier. There's some things that felt a little padded out. I feel like the early introductory moments, they could have streamlined it. They had this whole side plot where they introduced their friends who were in an up and coming band, which I feel like at the time was probably to showcase their music or whatever, which I get. You're using your platform, you're trying to get things out there, whatever. That's cool and fine. but I just think that could have been streamlined a little bit. The ending was really great, though. I liked the direction it went. It has a really cool couple of scenes that play over the credits that I thought wrapped a nice little bow on this movie. And yeah, it's just a fun, entertaining found footage movie. And that's all I can ask for with found footage because, like, there are some truly phenomenal found footage movies. But anytime I find something that's better than average or really entertaining, I'm always really happy to share it with other people. And I will definitely recommend Afflicted to others. I just found it to be really entertaining. So, have you seen Afflicted? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, and I'm already looking forward to watching it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.